Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MLS Now podcast pre-season torrent of tributes to teams that are going to be competing in the MLS regular season coming up. But of course, before we can talk about that and our team of the day being Sporting Kansas City, we have to get the usual housekeeping items out of the way. Just a quick reminder, I'm your host, Russell. You can find me on social media at Mr. Dangerous, and you can find the podcast on social media at MLS Now Podcast. But most importantly, our guest of honor for the day, you know him, you love him, you've heard his name on the podcast, you've heard his voice on the podcast. Back by popular demand is Travis, who you can find on social media at SKC Spins. Travis, wonderful to have you back on again. Been a long time.
What's up?
Now, I feel like you agreed to be on this podcast with, I'm not going to say trepidation, but certainly it was a, hey, you want to talk SKC? And I feel like in the back of your mind, you must have been like, do I want to talk about SKC? Like what? That feels like a loaded question. So, before we even dive in, like, where are you sitting at right now? Are you positive? Are you negative? Like at the time that we're recording this, we're less than a week from the MLS regular season kicking off. You're probably like less than a couple days by the time that we post this from Champions Cup happening. Like what's in your mind space right now?
I'll tell you. So, about a month ago, if you would ask me, I would have been nothing but negative. It's been years of bad for Sporting Kansas City, and it didn't look like anything was going to improve. But we finally signed Hovlich, and we signed Manu Garcia, and we got Shapi Suleimanov, and that is something that we needed so bad. And the amount of excitement went from 0 to at least a 5 or a 6 now. It's not all bad.
Okay. I was so ready mentally for you to be like, oh, we went from like a 0 to, like a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. And you're just like, we went from like a 0 to a 5 out of 6.
Yeah, that 5 is like better than I felt about the team in over a year. So it's not a bad 5, I guess. It's a 5, but I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat it and act like we're gonna be competing for the cup next year, because I really don't think we are.
The candidness is appreciated. I still love it. You had me in the first half, like right there. I was like, oh, he's gonna go for it, and it's like 5, and I'm like, what?
Well, we'll see how Manu Garcia pans out, because he's gonna be the big difference maker. He's the key. And if somebody tells you they know about Manu Garcia, there's a 99% chance that they're lying, because none of us watch the Greek Super League or whatever their league is called. And so, until we see him on the field, until we see how he works with everybody else that's on the team, there's just nothing that you can really accurately predict. And there's definitely question marks elsewhere. So I'll wait until we get into things, and we'll talk about all the other question marks. But, question marks could end up being positives. And that's the big difference between last year and this year. Is last year we went into the season with stuff like, oh, I don't think that's going to work out. And this year is like, oh, who knows? Maybe it'll work. Which is a big improvement.
That's true. If you go into it being like, I have no questions on this team and I know that it's not going to be fun, versus I have no idea what this team's going to look like. Right now, it's like, it's like those mobile games where they've got like the loot boxes and you're like, anything could be in it. It could be another box. It could be another loot box. I could get, I could get a boat from this, right? Like the old Family Guy sketch.
And
it's like,
if paying transfer fees is buying the premium pass, we're participating this year. Our loot boxes should be working out a little bit better.
Yeah. Oh man, that makes for an interesting quandary, right? Like if we're sticking with, the gaming industry or gambling terms, right? Like, so are we saying that like designated players are like buying like the battle pass or buying like the premium options and your regular transfers, or like you're rolling your dice on your regular old loot boxes? Is that what we're saying here?
But I guess the way I kind of look at it is what Sporting Kansas City is doing is we bought the premium, we bought the battle pass. What some of the bigger teams do, like Inter Miami, they just buy the item outright. They pay the $50 for the item that they want. And so we're still, rolling the dice, but we just have a little bit better odds now.
Yeah. You know what? With Messi, they may as well just be buying the company and then putting the nicest items on their account, anyways.
That's right.
They're just like, oh, yeah, this is a developer account. Yeah, it doesn't need to be balanced. No, not at all.
That's right.
All right, well, hey, let's get into it, right? So we've already sort of talked about just some of these big names coming in, but from like a general highlight, right? What else is going on? And we can even dive more into some of the names that you're talking about, right? Like Manu Garcia, like Joveljic, or Suleimanov, who there's a fun fact in there about Garcia and Suleimanov in that both of them came from the same team
Yeah.
in the Greek Super League.
Yeah, buying the package deal. Two for the price of one. That's not a bad thing. I really am interested to see how that played out with the MLS roster rules, how they worked the transfer fees out. Like if we paid $1 for Suleiman, but really we paid, it's interesting, but who knows?
Yeah, I feel like that's a way to game the system there that teams are gonna start looking into. If one of those was a $1 transfer fee and the other one was, oh, we'll give you a 10 million wink wink for
Yeah,
this other guy
yeah,
who might not be worth 10 million.
yeah.
So, okay, but obviously there's a lot of other stuff, right? Like I'm even just looking at like these players outside. Like you ended the season, there's a lot of very recognizable names on the players out side for you guys. I mean, Alan Polito gone,
Sure.
Johnny Russell gone, Tim Melia gone, Fontes gone, Flores gone. Like you guys cleaned house.
So with that, a lot of those guys were a year past their, like they should have been gone a year before. Alan Polito, I wrote an article a year and a half ago about how he was good in his comeback season, but that we shouldn't re-sign him. And we re-signed him on a bigger contract. So honestly, it's crazy that we were able to get rid of him. Mike Burns did a heck of a job to get Chivas to pay a transfer fee for him. You couldn't really ask for something better. But what I've been hearing a lot of people talk about is they're talking about like losing Alan Polito somehow made the team better. And while I agree that it makes us healthier on like our ability to bring in more players and like healthier as a team in the long term, he still provided 11 goal contributions for us last year. And that's not a lot for a DP that gets paid as much as he does. But I think the only other person that had as many goal contributions as him was Willie Agata, who had 13. So it's not like anybody was playing a heck of a lot better. And he was out of position through most of the season. And, he's a quality player and he was our best finisher. And so we're going to miss him. Thankfully, we got Joveljic, and Joveljic is, every in every aspect, I think he's better than Alan Polito. So that's a big improvement. Beyond that, Johnny Russell, anybody that likes Sporting Kansas City loves Johnny Russell. And, he's a great guy. He always gives 100%. He is a heck of a player, and he has the ability to finish and create his own shot, which not a lot of people on our team had. And so that's going to be missed. But at the same time, he was struggling with injuries last year, and he only had 4 goals and 3 assists. Remy Walter, he was probably the best guy out of the bunch that we're losing. He was still physically fit enough to play in MLS. He had the the attributes that you need to be a successful player. And he was always good for a great shot once or twice a year. But those were the good players that we lost on the way out. But, you know, other than that, a lot of the guys that we lost weren't doing the best. Andreu Fontes, I think he had a 1 speed in FIFA, is what people say about him. That's like, you know, he had more quality with his passing than anybody else in that back line, but he was just too old. He needed to go. And then Robert Castellanos, like, that guy played more than 1,000 minutes for us last year, and he is not a good center back. And like by the end of the year, it was kind of acceptable, but like any time in the first half of the season, if he came onto the field, it was like +2 for the other team. I absolutely hated it whenever he came in. And the biggest proof of it, look where he's playing now. He got signed to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And that was a guy who was starting for a good portion of our season last year. But I guess I miss one guy, Tim Melia. Tim Melia is great. He's just old. So we'll see how Camp can do. Both of our
Yeah.
goalies last year gave up a lot of goals, but I think for both of them, it was more about what was happening in front of them than what the goalie actually did.
I think there's an interesting trend in where you started on this because you talked about, Polito leaving makes the team healthier, right? And you even talk about like these are the guys who are good that we're losing. Like, would you say that overall you've done more addition by subtraction than you have actual just like straight up addition by new players arriving?
Um, I don't really think so. I think addition by subtraction is you have to have somebody coming in to fill that productivity because the people that were already on the team weren't filling that productivity anyway. And so, like, I think that we've added more through players than through subtraction because may not have been the best productivity. Definitely didn't win a lot of games last year, but you need somebody to score your goals. You need somebody to play defense. And the guys that we had waiting to get in weren't people you wanted to come in. Like, you aren't getting better by bringing those people or giving those people more minutes.
Okay. Well, let's look at the other side of the ball then, right? Like we hit briefly on Garcia, hit on Joveljic, initial reactions. Clearly it was enough to move the needle from a 0 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10 on excitement for the season. So what are you expecting to see, at least
Um,
from what the signings have told you?
so I kind of tried to break it down between the different lines. So on the front, last year we went into the season with Shalloway, Polito, and Russell. This year it's Shalloway, Joveljic, and Eric Tommy. And I think just the addition of Joveljic makes that a plus. So we got better. In the midfield, last year was Eric Tommy, Remy Walter, and Radoya. This year it's Manu Garcia, Jake Davis, and Radoya. And I think that's kind of a push. And then in the back, we last year was Ndimbe, Fontes, Rosero, Davis. This year it's Ndimbe, Rosero, Fernandez, and then question mark. And this is one of the most interesting parts of the team to me because although both players were on the team last year, we've never actually seen Rosero and Fernandez play together. Fernandez only got like 100 minutes for the team in total after he transferred to the team. And then when he finally started to play, Rosero was pretty much done for the season. And so I think your center back pairing is so important, and especially a guy like Rosero because he's somebody that we actually have seen that you can make some judgments on. And he'll do 8 incredible things and then follow it up by 2 boneheaded. And I like to call him the Drew Gooden of soccer, just in case you're an NBA person. Like, you'll definitely understand what that means. Uh, like, he does some stuff that the team needs, but he needs somebody beside him that will cover for some of his faults. And who knows if Fernandez is that guy, we could be like miles ahead in our back line, which changes everything. But it's a question mark that I don't think a lot of people have been thinking about or talking about so far from the discourse that I've heard going into this season.
Okay. And then just from you hearing, well, I shouldn't say just from you hearing, but rather just from me hearing you in how you've built out your lineups, it doesn't sound like you're expecting to see anything different tactically, at least from Vermees this year.
Yeah, so last year Vermees introduced the 4-2-3-1 a lot. And so you basically have the difference is whether you have a single pivot or a double pivot. And when he introduced the 4-2-3-1 was when Radoya was hurt. And Radoya, it, he performs a lot better as a single pivot than as part of a double pivot. And then when he came back from his injury, they tried to force him into the 4-2-3-1, and he never really fit. Uh, there were some positives that came out from it. Zoran Basong and Jake Davis, they worked side by side in the double pivot, and sometimes it looked pretty good when they were in there together. But we'll just see, moving forward how that works out, whether Radoya is able to stay healthy, whether he's able to keep that spot as a single six rather than like being forced into a double pivot. But yeah, I guess the other thing that affects also is where Manu Garcia is going to play, because in a 4-2-3-1 you have the natural 10 in the center, and that's what we signed him to be, where you don't get that as much in the 4-3-3. But that's all deeper tactics than I think I understand really, or you know, I can have opinions, but that's one thing Peter Vermees is probably ahead of me on.
Fair enough. Well, I suppose you don't get to stay head coach as long as he has, unless you understand tactics or unless you're great friends with your boss. And maybe in this case, he's got both those going for him.
Yeah, I would say that there's not a lot of people that get to stay head coach with his results, just in general. So he's got something going for him, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, okay. That said, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's move into expectations for the season, right? Like you told me again, month ago you're sitting 0 out of 10 excitement. Right now you've got a lot of, I would say, question marks, but in a good way. So what's, I guess, what's a realistic goal for you in, let's say, the overall season as well as like your first 5 matches, which, I've got your
Hmm.
first 5 pulled up, and it looks like you've got Austin, San Jose, DC United, Minnesota, and then LAFC are your first 5 regular season matches,
Well,
which
uh,
that's a mixed bag.
yeah, yeah, I think we're going to see how improved teams like Austin and San Jose are. And, uh, I'll be at that DC United game, so hopefully they can pull something off for that. But honestly, early in the season, I'm not expecting much. These guys haven't played together, they haven't meshed. Um, it'll be rough. So maybe we'll get a win. I hope so. Anything better than that is, you know, I'm always happy to be wrong. That's what I like when I post on the internet, like, this is terrible, blah blah blah. I always leave it with, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm not the guy that's like, I am pleasable. uh, but Yeah, I'll be at that DC United game, so I hope they pull that one off. If we get one win out of that first five, I'll be pretty happy.
That's fair. Yeah, and I think you've got great shouts as well, talking about the new and improved Austin and new and improved San Jose. I mean, talk about teams that are going to look wildly different from what you were probably used to seeing last season.
Well, we will too, but the issue is, I guess I haven't followed them in preseason. I've only really followed Sporting Kansas City, you know, and I know that our guys, even in preseason, haven't been playing with each other. I think out of our starters, uh, Dembe had a knock, Rosero had a knock, Fernandez had a knock, Willie Agata had a knock. Shapi Suleimanov just showed up like 2 days ago. Manu Garcia showed up a week ago. So even though we finally brought some players in, they still haven't adjusted to each other at all. So especially early in the season, I'm not expecting much. What I do kind of expect will happen is it'll be a rough start. We'll slowly build momentum. And then by the end of the year, hopefully we're pushing for like that seventh to ninth shot at the playoffs. I'd be okay with that.
Man, yeah, I didn't even have to ask the question. So seventh to ninth, would you say that that's consistent with what the rest of the fan base is expecting right now? Are you more conservative than them? Are you more optimistic than them?
Probably more optimistic. From most of what I've been hearing, that's pretty optimistic. But that's coming from a month ago. We were, I think pretty much all of us were like, no, this is wooden spoon. We'll be competing for some kind of trophy. not the not the right one. So yeah, definitely I think I'm somewhere in between realistic and optimistic. Uh One thing that kind of frustrates me in the discourse that's happening is everybody's like, "Oh, it's a rebuild. You need to give it time. You need to give it time." But we've seen in Major League Soccer, all it takes is a couple of good signings and you can go from the bottom to the top. And so we've made some signings. So if they're good, like you should have some sort of expectation. And I believe in that. And I think that if you're like, oh, it's a rebuild, just keep pushing it down the way, oh, it'll get better later. Like we'll never get better with that attitude. So you have to expect something.
Yeah, and I guess the good news for Sporting Kansas City on this is even if there is a slow to bordering rough start early this season, a good summer window, as long as you're somewhat close to the pack, you can still turn around and you can still make that seventh to ninth spot just by, again, like you said, one or two good signings in the summer.
Mhm.
Like you don't you don't need to have this huge, enormous overhaul to make a team competitive in MLS.
Yeah, and honestly, Mike Burns has said it. We're ahead of where we thought we would be. With Polito going, with getting a fee for Polito, that changes so much and like really accelerates everything. And it should accelerate the fans' expectations as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, again, it sounds like maybe you're the one who's got the accelerated expectations. The rest of the fans are like, "Wow, let's stick with the 5-year plan."
Yeah. Well, if you're doing 5 year plans in MLS, you just have to add ownership because like you can do it in MLS. There's 10 to 15 leagues better than us. There's talent out there to get. And if you are willing to pay for it, you can change your team.
Yeah. Well, not just 10 to 15 leagues, but I mean there's hidden gems out there in leagues everywhere for
Sure.
people who are, they're either the fringe starters or it's someone who's just now breaking through in like a lower league and sometimes you can look at them and be like they're going places. It's like why not make MLS be that next place before they go, to really big places like, top 5 global leagues.
Sure. And I mean, I'll always go to bat for MLS. I think it's a great league. I think it's entertaining. And I think it's proven itself, especially recently, as being a great medium for players to advance their careers. So yeah, definitely.
One of the one of the things that I love to do is to throw random questions your way. I'm going to throw a random one your way that I've asked no one else. So there was no way you could prepare for this.
Well, I did it. I promise.
um, should MLS lean more into like the American sports, like the silly things that some, professional teams do at halftime? Should we lean more into that in MLS just to, really embrace like if people are already going to dunk on the league globally, right? And be like trying to make fun of it or like do you just lean into it and say, you know what? Yeah, let's make this a party for the fans. Let's just go wild.
I mean, I'm all for it. I'm not. I don't know. I think the idea that a lot of American fans have, where they want to be like European or they want to be English. It's especially the fans of the Premier League. Like they just annoy me. I realize that it's the best league in the world. There's no denying that it is the highest quality football or soccer or whatever you want to call it. But the elitism and to act like you can't enjoy other leagues is just so stupid to me. Like, and then like when you go to other European leagues where like they base the whole league off of like three teams that pay for players, and the rest of the league is just below MLS level. Like you're getting plenty good quality football or soccer or whatever you want to call it. Just make it a fun experience and keep people coming out. I don't think Americans need to be snobby about their game. I'll tell you, the best live experiences I have are NBA games, and it's a blast every time out. They have people doing stupid stuff, so I would be more than happy doing stupid stuff at halftime at a soccer game as well.
Yeah, I always think of like you think of like hockey where they'll have like, kids go out like, between periods and they'll like play on the ice or something or like do like an impromptu game or, just something fun, right?
Yeah,
Like why not? Get some youth soccer teams out there, have them doing like some rondos or have them do like, some sort of just like fun thing to like see kids showing off and getting a chance to do something special.
yeah. The difference, the kind of the problem with it in soccer is you only got halftime to do anything. You know, everybody else is like, that's when I'm going to get another beer. I'm probably not going to be sitting in my seat watching that stuff. But
That's fair. Well, look, this is why you got the guys going up and down the aisles in the stadiums being like, cold beer, who's
yeah,
thirsty?
hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And then, like, I've really got to respect the hustle on that, especially because I know some of those guys are doing that, and it'll be like February. And, for Cincinnati, right, we're expecting like 16 degrees Fahrenheit at the home opener. And it's just like I know for a fact that they're going to be going up and down those stairs in that aisle, like still shouting like "Who's thirsty? Cold beer!" And I'm just gonna be like, "I don't need cold beer.
Yeah, do you have
Bring
hot
me a
beer
hot
right now?
coffee.
Like, you got any of
Give me
that
a
British
hot,
style that's like warm and not carbonated?
yeah. Give me cellar temperature, nitrogen based. Like
Yeah.
I love nitrogen based beers. That's great.
Mhm.
Uh, even give me like a hot cider, right? Like
There
give me
you
like a
go.
spiked, apple cider, like shot of whiskey or bourbon in it. Like why not? I would be all over that.
Sure. Yeah, anything that works.
Yeah, anything that's hot when it's that cold outside. Look, I can wear gloves, I can wear, hats and scarves, and you take your blanket. But look, the outsides can stay warm. I gotta warm up the insides too.
Yep.
okay, okay, so let's warm up our inner fan, right? Let's warm up our insides with some warm, fuzzy thoughts here. Let's say that like SKC overperforms expectations, right? Like let's say they hit like fifth place at the end of the season, like very respectably, firmly in the playoffs, right? Like not by the skin of their teeth, not like ninth place, not really a real playoff team. It's the play-ins, fakes, fake playoff, haha. Like no, firmly in the playoffs. What what three things do you think have to really go right for SKC in order to hit that mark?
So the number one thing is we need to be healthy. Uh, our back line, we already talked about it a little bit, but Ndembe's had injury problems. Rosero has injury problems, and Fernandez didn't get minutes. And if those three are out, hey, our bench is not that deep, and that goes for pretty much every position on our team, other than our striker. Is we actually have some depth at striker, but yeah, in any position we are not deep right now, so we need to stay healthy. The second, I talked about it before, but the players need to mesh. They haven't played with each other, so they need to fit into the system that Peter puts them in, and they need to be able to work well with each other. We don't know how that's going to work out, so they need to perform. And then the third, to me, would be our goalkeeper play. Um, I said that Pulskamp was pretty much a push with Milia. That's a little bit of a push in saying that, just because Milia is probably better than Pulskamp still, but it's not a huge drop off. But the other two um, goalkeepers that we have on the roster are both, one was a college pickup just last year, and then one was just playing in the under 17s for the U.S. men's national team. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of question marks in our goalkeeper play.
I'm noticing a theme here when you're describing a lot of positions. You're frequently referencing, got a lot of question marks on this one.
Yeah, we haven't seen them, and they haven't played at this level yet, or for a lot of them. Like, you could say that, you know, that what's the team called? Ars Thessaloniki is about the same level as Sporting Kansas City, but they haven't played in MLS. And a lot of these guys haven't had the minutes to really judge them in this league. So if you have something better than a question mark, I really can't support you on that unless like you've been in the practice with them, or you're some kind of like soccer scout wonder guy, like.
Well, I think you know what strikes me about that, and you're talking about how they haven't played at this level for MLS. It reminds me of Talus Magno was being quoted as saying, I didn't respect the league going to it. I wasn't prepared mentally for the, level of physicality, for the challenge and the quality in the league. And like, and he's down in Brazil right now and he's saying this about MLS and
Mhm.
in a way, I would say almost, almost singing the praises of MLS, which is quite interesting to me because again, it's people love to dunk on MLS and I can't help but wonder like what's Vermees, what's the rest of the team going to do to really try and be like, hey, people who just came from like the Greek Super League, this isn't the MLS that you might have grown up watching, seeing, like the occasional star and then a bunch of people who are like, oh, look at them, how nice they get to share the field with, Beckham or Henry or something like.
Mhm. Yeah, every team has good players. The introduction of DPs has increased the quality of every team in the league, and it'll be fun to see how it works out. I mean, if you asked me a month ago, I wasn't excited about watching the games. I was going to because I'm a Sporting Kansas City fan, damn it. But now, like, I am excited to see this team grow together, and especially being from Kansas City, having the Kansas City flair to things. Like, think of the Royals when the Royals got better, and all of a sudden it's a young team, and they all were starting to work together. And maybe that first year wasn't the best, but you could just see that potential. And that's what I'm looking for in this team this year, is just to see that potential of what they might be if things work out and they mesh well together.
Are the players that SKC has brought in, are they predominantly younger players?
Oh,
I don't know this offhand.
Yeah, I don't have their ages written down in front of me, so I don't want to guess, but we got homegrown players. Uh, I think three or four of the guys were homegrowns. We got Mason Toy, who I think's like 24, 25. He's had some injury problems, but he's definitely younger than the people that were in his kind of space before. And then, yeah, Manu
Jovic
Garcia.
is young.
Yeah, Jovic is young. Manu Garcia and Shapi Suleimanov are both under 30, I think. So we went from one of the oldest teams to one of the youngest teams in the league, which is definitely a step in the right directions because we have room to grow now. And we haven't been like really fighting for a championship the last couple of years. So to have room to grow and get better is like a huge thing. It makes watching the team so much more entertaining, at least for me.
Yeah, and I don't think that SKC is playing in any other competitions other than US Open Cup in terms of like league
No,
play, US Open Cup, or
no, we aren't in US Open Cup. It's MLS
not
Next
even in
Cup.
US Open Cup.
Yeah, we didn't qualify for anything, but we did
What in the
qualify for the
world?
CONCACAF Champions League.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Because what
We
was
were
it? It
we
was
were
you made
runner
it.
ups in Leagues Cup last year, and that because we played LAFC, and
Yeah.
because they were
And
already qualified, then uh we got the
okay, that's right. You got the spot, even though you didn't win it. But
Mhm.
okay, it's that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I hope your team does well, but not better than Cincinnati because our two team is also in it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I was looking at the East. We did our power ranking vote today, and the East is looking rough for you. I was pretty happy to not be in the East. But the West is going to be better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, while you're expressing sentiment that you're happy to not be in the East, it could be argued that a lot of the West got better this
Yeah,
offseason,
yeah,
like, and not by a small amount. I mean, San Jose, enormous overhaul, right? I mean, Seattle has grabbed a bunch of the good players from Dallas and then continued to add. And RSL is RSL did downgrade. I mean, let's be honest.
yeah,
And then like St. Louis is they did a lot of business in the summer, and now they've had time to kind of like gel and let that kind of all come together now over the winter. So it's definitely gonna be interesting out west.
yeah. That's the one thing. So, Manu Garcia and Shapi Suleimanov, they don't have like overwhelming stats coming out of the Greek league, and the Greek league, other than maybe one or two teams, is like pretty inferior to MLS. So if you aren't like destroying that league and you're coming over, like if that's our answer, and like Tom Boger is on the record saying that he thinks this is a really good move and that these people are going to perform well in Verme's system, but this is yet to be seen whether these guys with average stats that haven't been playing a lot of minutes either, because I was looking at Manu Garcia's minutes and he doesn't break 1,000 a lot of years. So, like, how that's going to translate to us, we got a lot riding on him being good and becoming the creator that we need. And so it'll be really interesting. But, you know, it's something that I'm excited to see. And, in 2 months, if nothing works right, I might be back to that zero. But they've bought me up to a 6 for now. So we'll see. And, they'll get bonus points if they win the game that I go to here in DC. So,
I feel like they're gonna get bonus points for any game that they win at that point. Like it
yeah.
again, I feel like you're setting the bar. I can't tell if you're like you're sandbagging it, where it's like you're telling me like, oh, Bogner says these are great moves, but we'll see, like, I'm not going to expect much. And then they come flying out of the gate, and everyone's going to be like, hey, wait a second. Travis undersold this to us. Like, he was saying question marks, and turns out they're great.
If you're selling them higher, it's you're lying. Like, if you look at what we did in the preseason, it wasn't we scored 2 goals in the entire preseason. You can't take a ton from it, but we lost to a college team. And we tied with a USL team. It's not the results that you're looking for. Our offense hasn't come up with the goals that you need to win in MLS. And out of what you could watch as a fan, like when Joveljic played, we looked really good in transition. He didn't finish anything, but he only did that for 30 minutes in what you could actually watch. And so I feel good about that. But even with that, he wasn't with, like, our back line. Like I said before, those guys aren't playing. What about we had Kyrie Shelton playing center back in a lot of preseason. That guy's been a forward through, he's a striker through most of his career, and he spent some time at right back last year. There's a good chance he's our starting day right back. But in preseason, he was playing center back for us. That's how, like, thin we are. So if you're, like, very confident that it's going to be awesome, you might be high.
Whatever they have, you want some of that?
Well, no, I got to keep my job. I got to pass the, but yeah.
Okay, so
but that said, I'm a firm believer that MLS, the talent margins are small, and that if these signings work out, you don't know. There's so many question marks that they could end up being pluses, and so you can't be that negative either. So it's kind of a fun place to be in. Like, when you go in not expecting much and you get something, it feels good.
Yeah. Schrodinger's soccer team right now. Are they good? Are they bad? I don't know. Don't
Yeah.
know until they play.
Yeah.
So let's channel the realism and maybe the rest of the Sporting Kansas City fan base right now. What's like the big worry? What's the thing that you think would be most likely to happen that's going to pull this team completely back down?
Injuries. Like, yeah, Vermes or Sporting Fit has been a meme in the Sporting Kansas City fandom community for a while now. He always talks about getting people sporting, or Vermes always talks about getting people sporting fit and not playing them until they're sporting fit. And, sporting fit tends to end up in a lot of season-ending injuries. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, hopefully none of those, because, it would never wish a season-ending injury on anyone.
Yeah.
But, look, all I'm saying is when, Tottenham plays Arsenal, maybe a little bit of food poisoning goes around Tottenham's locker room. That's okay for me. But okay. Hey, another random question just to throw your way, because I have been loving some people's ideas here. If MLS came to you and they're like, Travis, you're on a podcast, you've got good ideas, you've got passion for the league, we need help making the league more popular, more approachable, getting people invested in it, and they ask you for just one idea, what would your idea or your suggestion to MLS be to make the league, more approachable or more popular, to get people invested in it in some way, shape, or form?
I think the biggest thing MLS can do is continue to develop the quality of players that we have in our league. And I think the easiest way to do that is to simplify all the roster rules. And I think the overall goal should be NHL level salary for every team in MLS, which is like 70 to 100 million for every team in MLS, which I think can be doable. NHL is not that much more popular than MLS in my mind. Anyway, maybe it is, but uh, so I mean, the easy step now, which you, I'm sure the MLS owners would want to argue with me, but I've heard it's something that a lot of them are fighting for within the league. Just have a simple $20 million salary cap, and then put three DPs on every team. And if you want to be good, if you want to spend it all, go ahead. And if you want to be, middle of the road, but I don't think you're going to get the despair. Like, it's not going to turn the league into like the Bundesliga where Bayern just win every year. Or, I think that leaves enough room for the competitiveness that we want in American sports. But, yeah, that's what I would do.
I looked it up while you were talking just now. And 2023, the 2023 to 2024 season for NHL was 22.5 million fans in attendance. Now, I have no idea what the broadcast and what the viewership on that looks like, so I'm not even going to attempt to draw a comparison there. But hey, MLS, I think, actually got pretty close to that, maybe even surpassed it in terms of attendance.
Yeah, our attendance is better than NHL's right now, I think, but NHL definitely does better on TV. But they play a lot more games. It's another issue. So
Yeah. Yep, I actually also just fact checked myself on that one as well. So yeah, we did not beat them on total attendance, but they did play slightly over twice the number of matches that
yeah,
MLS did. So
yeah, but
maybe we're roughly similar. Maybe
yeah, their arenas are a lot smaller. They're all indoors. So
true. But weird that they're playing indoors. I thought they would be playing on ice, but
yeah, boom, ching.
I'll see myself out. It's the coffee speaking at 7:30 at night.
Can't do that. I wish I could. I'm too old now. You'll be old one day, Russell.
I'm already into the world of people who wake up in the morning and it's just like I slept wrong. My back hurts. Can I just call it? Can I call it a day? Can I just skip this one?
Yeah,
Man, yeah, I think it's just because I drink too much coffee in general. Like, man, if we ever got a sponsorship for this podcast and it wasn't a coffee sponsorship, everyone would be shocked for how much coffee I consume. I mean, I think I even put people in Finland to shame, and people in Finland, I think, drink the most coffee per capita of anywhere in the world.
I worked for some pretty well-known roasters back in the day. Maybe I'll talk to them, see if we can get a commercial from them.
Yeah, or if nothing else, just tell me some stuff they sell, and I'll buy it. I just love coffee.
Yeah, I'll send it to you in the Discord.
There we go. Nice. Well, Travis, my conversation starters have come to an end, so I guess I'll open the floor up to you. Is there anything else you want to talk about on this SKC side of things? I mean, look, we can always talk coffee, and maybe we can talk coffee on a different podcast, different time, different place.
Yeah, I would love to sometime. I know you got your food podcast, so I'm not an expert anymore, but there's about 5 years when I probably was.
Hey, 5 years of expertise counts for something.
Yeah, but I I don't have a lot. I'm just excited to see how the question marks turn into answers. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great. It's been a while, so yeah, I'm happy to be back, and I'm excited for the season.
I hope your question marks turn into exclamation marks for the record.
Hey, exclamation marks can be positive or negative.
They can, but it's exciting either way, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, Travis, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for making some time. I know this was relatively short notice, so the flexibility and willingness to just hop on a call and chat SKC is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm always here. I might be starting a grad school in a couple of weeks, so I might not have that flexibility in a couple of weeks, but we'll see how that goes.
Or counterpoint, you might desperately crave something else to talk about than grad school.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Awesome. Well, just a quick reminder then. So, if you want to find Travis on social media, you can find him on various social media at SKC Spins. You can also find the podcast on social media at MLS Now Podcast. And as always, you can find me on social media at Mr. Dangerous. But with that said, that brings our chat about SKC to a close. So, Travis, listeners, everyone who continues to tune in for this content across the preseason, thank you as always. And we'll see y'all next time.
All right. See ya.